I am really enthusiastic about today's interview. We have the privilege of spending a few minutes with veteran executive coach Terri Citterman. Terri helps good thinkers become great leaders. She's an executive coach and author of the book, From the CEO's Perspective. Terri coaches CEOs, executive teams, and executives on the path to becoming the industry shapers and thought leaders of the future. Terri, it's really great to have you with us today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Michael.
So I've been looking forward to this conversation, Terri, because I know you've been working in the executive coaching space for quite some time, and you've done a lot of great things that I'd like to explore in our interview today for the benefit of newer coaches in the field.
Well, thank you. Let's do it.
All right. So first question, just kind of going back a ways to when you first started out, why did you decide to become a CEO executive coach?
Well, my path was kind of unique a little bit. So my background's corporate communications. I was in PR for 20 years, and I knew I wanted to shift out of PR. I was also a ghostwriter, so I was ghostwriting books for CEOs, and I found that the process of ghostwriting was very similar to coaching. I didn't really know what coaching was, but then I was researching different organizations to get certified through, found Center for Executive Coaching, met Andrew, never looked back.
Interesting. So many of the coaches that come into the field struggle with the question of, should I establish a niche and how narrow should it be? Should it be focused on a specific type of role? Should it be on an industry? And you established a niche of coaching primarily CEOs. How did you settle on that niche, which seems to be maybe one of the most challenging to establish?
Well, the reason it's challenging is because it comes with a little bit of inner critic, right? But so I'll answer this in two different ways. One is, yes, I think people should, you kind of have to dabble around a little bit to find out exactly what you want to do. But once you figure it out, focus on that, set your goal and just go forward. Because once you have a niche, it's easy to say no. It's easy to say no to all the other things that come your direction that don't align with what you're actually trying to do. So I highly recommend establishing a niche. Now, with my particular niche, like I said, there was a little bit of inner critic because have you ever been a CEO? No. Why would CEOs listen to you? I don't really what this is the definition of being on equal footing. I really had to see CEOs eye to eye, and that's one of my strengths is I don't back down. I ask the hard questions. I challenge people's thinking. And, sometimes I'm not that fun to be around. So, but I like the most important thing for me is the issues that CEOs deal with are issues that no one else does. And that's why I chose CEOs and why it's worked.
And were you comfortable right from the beginning, or would you say it took 6 months, a year or so before you settled into that niche and felt really comfortable?
My strategy was to write the book From the CEO's Perspective, which established what I would call credibility by association. I had a pretty strong network anyway, but the book really established my association with CEOs. So it made it kind of easier for other people to perceive me as a CEO coach. And really my big strategy was to shift people away from thinking about me as a PR person and more about me being an executive coach.
And I can absolutely see how writing that book helped you to make that transition, not only in your own mind, but more importantly, in the minds of the people that you might coach or people who would refer you to CEOs.
Yep. Perception
Tell
is
us a little bit more, please, about how writing that book impacted your business.
Yeah. Well, like you just said, and I just said it, but I don't know if you caught it. Perception is reality. So there's a big piece of that. I wish I could say that I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't know this was going to happen. My book really became the platform for everything I do. So again, it established my lane very quickly and very easily. So anything I did had to align to From the CEO's Perspective, whether it was events, whether it was writing, anything I was doing had to be in that, with that theme. So the book really kind of was a springboard for everything I do, everything I've done forward.
So it was critically important to establishing yourself in your current business. How did you get so many CEOs to participate in the project? I think you have as many as 20 different CEOs interviewed in there.
Yeah, I do. I asked them, and some of them said no, and I'm extremely tenacious, and they said yes eventually. So, yeah, one of the ones who said no was Brad Tilden, who's now a good friend, who's the CEO. He's actually the retiring CEO of Alaska Airlines. He said no, and that was not acceptable. So he eventually said yes.
And so some of these people you had to pursue for a little while and ask multiple times.
Yes, tenacity is the name of the game in any business, but certainly when you're writing a book or when you're establishing a coaching business, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I've done a lot of interviews with professional salespeople, and this isn't unlike selling, right? You're selling the idea of participating in a book project, and people are going to initially pull back from that, thinking, "Oh, that sounds like a lot of work. I'm busy. That's not one of my projects. That's your project." And so you have to sell them on the idea, and I see how that is something that helped you to get this project done.
Well, and one thing I would say is what surprised me most, and I think this is important, is I didn't actually have to sell it that hard.
Mm.
The number one thing is if you don't ask, you won't get. So if you ask people, you'd be surprised at what people are willing to do. I was shocked at how trusting they were of, their content becoming my content. I was shocked actually that they really trusted that I said I was going to do this, and I, did it.
Mm-hmm.
But the most important thing is you have to ask, like, don't shy away.
Yeah, I totally get that, because that's how I'm able to get people on this show to do these interviews. I mean,
Right.
if I didn't ask you, Terry, you didn't come to me, I reached out to you, and the other people I've interviewed, exact same thing. And now what's happening is that a few people are seeing the interviews and actually approaching me and asking, how do I get on your show?
That's cool. Yeah. You create the momentum. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. So then you have branched out and done more than just writing the book to establish yourself as a CEO coach. You've already also created the CEO Forum. Can you tell me about that and how that has woven into your business?
Yeah, it truly came out of the book. I felt like I was so privileged to ask these 20 CEOs any questions I wanted. And, I felt like there's so much to be shared, and there weren't that many forums or opportunities to do live, to ask questions of live CEOs. And so this was back in 2013. 3 of the CEOs that are in the book were my first 3 panelists. I had partnered with the World Trade Center to put on these quarterly forums, and they were live events. It's not like they don't exist. They still are. Well, now they're virtual live, but anyway, so we had 3 CEOs sitting on the panel talking about whatever leadership issues I thought we should be talking about. So that started, 7 years ago? I can't even do math, 8 years ago.
Wow.
And again, it really reinforced my brand. So I didn't just stick to the book CEOs. I branched out far beyond the book CEOs. So I've had pretty much every, with the exception of Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, every CEO in the Seattle area on my panel, and continue to do so. So my next one is coming up soon.
And you haven't lost momentum or energy towards continuing to do these events?
Oh, sometimes I do, but your brand is your brand. People have an expectation at this point.
Right. And
they always sell out. So, they're valuable. And what I found, which I didn't realize, was I really like moderating. Didn't know that until I started doing it. And what I've missed, because we did put this on hold for a little while in 2020, I really missed being able to ask the questions, being able to, really probe people's minds. So now I do it one-on-one on phone calls, but that's, that doesn't help other people get educated.
Yeah, exactly. And then what about the business angle? How has doing the CEO Forum helped your business?
Well, from a business standpoint, again, it's credibility by association. So I've certainly, been hired by those CEOs to coach their teams. I mean, I've been brought in on different occasions, and that's great. But even more so, because there's an audience full of people, that extends my reach dramatically. So events are really good. They take a bit of time, but it's also great to establish a partner. Like I said, World Trade Center was my first partner. Now it's the Washington Athletic Club. So you're reaching a whole new audience, and that's kind of the name of the game.
Right. Which to me is taking the whole idea of speaking to another level, because many coaches think about being thought leaders and doing presentations, but you've actually done a different angle on the idea and become a moderator and facilitator and let someone else be the star of the show. And that still positively affects your credibility.
Well, I'm an introvert, so that's how I do things. I'm more of an orchestrator versus the star on stage. And this is the thing. I don't love speaking. I don't bill myself as a speaker. I just like to create my own platform. I like to create my own stuff and feature other people. So it's all about strategy.
Yeah, well, it's an excellent lesson, really, that I hope people consider, that there's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak, right? So now I know that you're branching out into yet another medium of reaching out to an audience. You've created your first online course. Could you tell me about that a little bit?
Yes. One thing I learned was writing a book is much easier than writing a course. So I wrote a course called what is it called? Executive Presence for Introverts. And the reason I wrote it, I live in Seattle, and not all my clients are here, but many who are here are related to technology. They're introverts. They're very good technologists, but they've evolved their careers, and here they find themselves as leaders lacking some of the people skills that they really need. So Executive Presence for Introverts, it's a comprehensive signature course, 5 modules that just really attacks all the challenges and strength. It attacks the challenges by really helping introvert leaders understand their strengths to build their confidence and to really have impact. Right now you're seeing, you look at Microsoft, introvert CEO, Alaska Airlines, introvert CEO. There's Jeff Bezos, kind of debatable, but I think he's an introvert if you look at his habits. Google, certainly Apple. So you're seeing a lot more introverts on the stage.
Right. And this seems like a product that is fairly unique to going back to what we talked about earlier about establishing a niche. This is a niche course. Yes. That is targeted to a very specific audience, and that's going to make it easier for people to immediately identify with it or understand that this is for you and refer it to someone. And I'm sure, as with everything else you've done, that's part of the strategy.
It's always the strategy. Yeah. I know exactly what it isn't. And by the title, so should everyone else.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Looking forward to learning more about that course and helping to share that course with people in my network.
Great. Thank you.
The job of being a CEO got tougher during the pandemic. Now that we're well into it, we're celebrating the anniversary of it. I shouldn't say celebrating, but recognizing the anniversary of it.
Right.
And hopefully celebrating because we're moving past it soon. What do you think are the traits that CEOs need to embody now to lead their companies through the next phase?
Yeah, well, one of the big things that I'm talking about, thinking about, writing about is flexible leadership. We've gone from what was, what normal used to be to completely remote and virtual. And now as we enter the next phase, companies are looking at how do they do the next phase, and what it really requires from CEOs, but from all leaders really, is the ability to be flexible, the ability to realize and really shift away from the mindset of, if I can see you, that means you're working. This is going to be a big challenge, I think, especially for traditional companies. I'm seeing it in hospitality and retail. And if I don't see you, you must not be working. That's a huge, that's a total, whatever is against equity and inclusiveness, that's it. So that's a big piece. Is CEOs are really going to have to find their adaptability, to find their flexibility is just the best way I can think of saying it. Is you have to be, your mind has to be able to flex right and left and really see things differently than we have before. The other piece is communication. Right now with all my clients, communicating more content, more frequently, and more personalness, I guess is the word I've been using. You got to bring a personality to your delivery, because everybody has gone through something and continue to go through something that has just been monumental. There was no playbook. There still isn't. And it really requires, I don't even want to say transparency. That's not even a thing for me. It's just, or authenticity, complete, overused buzzwords. It's really about being you and having that be exactly who you want to be.
So being flexible, being adaptive, being more personal, and understanding that everybody's going through something. These are themes that I hope leaders are recognizing and embracing, and also that you bring up this important point of being able to get over the fact that because you can't see them, they must be working. Hopefully they're still working. This idea, I know for some leaders is very challenging because they love to walk through the office and see everybody and feel the buzz and the energy in the air of a busy office. And that's just not what we're going to see for some time in the near future. And you have to accept that.
Well, and I think it's a really important piece because it comes down to trust. But it really has less to do with your employees and more to do with your own awareness. And I'm talking about a CEO's awareness of why don't you trust? That's something you really have to explore, because I know that it has a lot more to do with the CEO than it has to do with employees. So, we've been out of our comfort zone. We've been, way far over our skis, and we're not really going to bounce back. I don't think. I think we just have to come up with new ways to think about things, new frameworks in our mind. And another buzzword that I have to say, but I don't use very often, is empathy, right? I don't use it because I look at it as integrity. I know not everybody has it, but the simplest way to say it is just care more. Just care more.
And that says a lot right there. Care more. Now, at your company, Terri, called Talon, you have a team of coaches and facilitators. How important is it to have a team when trying to work with large companies?
It's important because you have to be able to scale. So I can't do it all, and certainly I'm not for everyone. So it's great to have a team of like-minded people who, like, actually several of my team members didn't go through Center for Executive Coaching, but I will say it is easier to work with people who have, because we learn the same methodologies. But having a team helps you push yourself out of your own comfort zone. They think differently than I do. And let's be honest, I like doing things my way unless you have a better way. So it's good to be challenged. But it also, you can't scale by yourself. You just simply can't do it. So having a team is important. We pull each other in on different projects. I pull other people in on different projects. So you have to have, at the very least, kind of a cadre of people that you can resource.
Yeah, that seems important. When did you realize that you wanted to build a team around you?
Well, I want to be clear. I haven't built a team because I don't want to build a team, but I want the cadre around me. But I launched a program called Leadership Lab 19. It's for executives on the trajectory to the C-suite. And I couldn't do that alone. And I wanted to work. There were two particular people I wanted to do more work with. And rather than going out and getting work, I just decided to create it. So again, I like to speak on my terms. So this was an in-person sort of cohort group. And it was really cool because I got to learn a lot about myself, but also about how other people, like both my coaches are great facilitators. And I found that I don't really love facilitating. So I could really leverage their skills in doing that. And, it's kind of like know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and find those who excel in what you're not good at.
Right. And there's a lesson there that we've heard through some of the other questions, that you know what you like, you know what your strengths are, and you push on those and leverage those, and you work with others to delegate work, or to simply trust them to do the work that you're not as good at, that they're great at.
Yeah.
And then you have a balanced offering that can reach more people. You seem to be very inventive and creative, Terri. Where does that come from?
Where does that come from? Well, it's funny because recently someone was saying, you're such a visionary. I'm like, that's interesting. I think part of it has to do with, I'm just not someone who waits to be asked. I decide that I want something and I make it happen. And whether it has to do with who I want to work with, clients, coaches, writing a book. I mean, I have a lot of drive. So, and the most important piece is the focus. If you can have a lot of drive and, dabble in a lot of things, I don't do that. I'm very clear on what I do and don't do.
Right. Yeah. I've certainly heard that. And I think that's part of your success, is being very clear about what you do and what you don't do. All right. So then the final question that I have for you is, what advice do you have for coaches who are just starting their practices now?
I think there are three things that are most important. And we've talked about establishing your niche, and you kind of have to experiment a little bit before you can do that. But as soon as you can, do it. Number two, do not let anyone else influence your thinking. Be careful who you ask questions to. And the reason is because you know intuitively what you want to do and who you want to work with. So don't let people, I could have let people say, well, you've never been a CEO. So what? One of the big keys or strengths that I have is I care very little what other people think. And if I could bottle that and give it to people, I would, because being influenced by other people, it's not going to get you where you want to go. The third thing is stay on equal footing. Do whatever you need to do to have the confidence to be in the moment, on equal footing, challenging people's thinking, asking the right questions. Don't back down.
Wow. This whole idea of, so what? When you said, so what? You haven't been a CEO before. And I have said that same thing, Terri, that I rose to no higher than a director level in the corporate work that I did. And I don't mean director, board of director. I mean director below senior director, below VP, below SVP, EVP, AVP, RVP, every VP level. And that's not even getting to the C-suite, right? And yet now I coach people at the C level too, and on down to middle management. Mm-hmm. And it all gets to getting out of your own head and being worried about your experience, because it's not about you, it's about the client.
Yeah. And the thing that I kind of hang my hat on is I'm really good at listening to what's not being said. I'm really good at reading the room and seeing the nuances. And that's my platform, my own personal platform, to stay on equal footing. I know those are superpowers that I have, and other people have to find their own superpowers and then hang your hat on that. That's where your confidence lives.
Wonderful. Wow, Terri, this has been really terrific. I really enjoyed this
Me
time
too,
with
Michael. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I love it.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a really great conversation. And I know that the coaches who watch this are going to get so much out of it. They're going to be inspired and fired up to do some of the things that you have done, and follow in your path of being very clear about what you want, being clear about what you're good at, being clear about the value that you provide, being clear about who you want to work with. I mean, there's just so much that I've gotten from this time together with you too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And people from Center for Executive Coaching connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to have conversations, and if my advice is helpful, great.
It sure is. You can count on it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.